On today's motor show, the Renault RX4 gets put through its paces in the Moroccan desert. 2 all-new drivers try out some small city cars, and we cook up a storm, Rolls-Royce style. Plus is the Citroen Saxo, the new king of the hot hatches, or will the trusty old Golf retain the crown forever? And we look at 3 attractive diesels to find out which is the best.
Oh no, Mummy, look! Asteroids! Where? No, that's not asteroids. It's your father who's been wearing those old shorts again. No, it is. It's asteroids. Quick, dive for cover. Get under the seats. Now, if the Robinson family really had crashed to the surface of an alien planet in the film Lost in Space in a Renault, then this would have been the space buggy of their choosing.
Take one Renault Megane family hatch, pop a straw up its exhaust pipe and blow gently but firmly until its profile resembles a gerbil waiting to pounce. Then clad the exterior with chunky plastic, chuck in a 4-wheel drive system and hey presto, one scenic RX4.
Renault are certainly not newcomers to the business of inventing new categories. They've been carefully cultivating a reputation for innovation for over a decade now. Whether or not they really did actually invent the whole concept of the people carrier with the Espace might be up for debate. Some people reckon it was Chrysler with the Voyager. But either way, there's no doubting that they've done a lot to popularise and develop the category in Europe. A couple of years ago, they went a step further with the invention of the Scenic, a new mini MPV that went on to huge success and spawned a whole new booming sector that now includes the likes of the sensible Vauxhall Zafira, the oddly symmetrical Citroen Picasso, and the just, well, plain odd Fiat Multipla.
As it's based on the Megane platform, it's only as big as a small family hatch on the road, but it's a monospace, so the body is just one big box, giving those clever designer types plenty of space to be, well, clever with. And boy, have they been.
Right, let's get down to the truth of it. On paper, the Scenic makes an awful lot of sense, but then so do comfortable shoes and elasticated waists, and you don't want those, do you?
It only has limited off-road ability, but then so do I. Anything more rugged than a quick dash across a mildly muddy field to find the perfect picnic pitch, and I'll have one of my attacks of nerves. If you want to get muddy and uncomfortable, go and buy a Land Rover Defender.
There is one quite major problem in launching a sensible off-roader. It's not a sensible class. Well, it isn't. Think about it. It's a place where cars that are supposedly sold for their practicality are actually huge, cumbersome, thirsty great monsters, more suited to warfare than anything else. It's a marketplace where the great battle wagons that pitch up outside the school gates to disgorge their precious cargo of ankle biters before waddling off to the tennis club have the rule. It's not a very nice place for the poor little fella to be launched into. There is more than just a glimmer of hope though. Sales of lightweight 4x4s have been very positive, and if that trend continues then the Scenic RX4 should have it just about sewn up. It's more practical than an entire scout troop, more rugged than John Wayne in bulletproof pants and a tin hat, and it even looks good too. So maybe just occasionally common sense really does prevail.
Oh no, hang on, Luke, he's nicked us car. Come back with it. Oh, don't leave us here.
Do you remember the first time you got on the road after passing your test? Those embarrassing bunny hops down the road and taking ages to park properly when it seemed that every other motorist was looking at you. And then there's the day that you get your first set of wheels. Now that first car, like the first love, is something that you remember forever. But unfortunately, the first car is usually far nicer to you than the first love is. Then when you finally do get mobile, you usually end up with a shabby, battered old rust bucket. But wouldn't it be nice instead if you could get the keys to a shiny, new little car? Something that's cheap, fun, affordable, and maybe just a little bit sexy. So let's check out the pulling power of two of the latest city cars aimed at young drivers. The Dhiatsu Cuore Custom at £6,500 is supposed to bring a dash of style and sporty feel into this sector of the market. Some say they've succeeded with the styling. You may just think that it looks like a beefed up shopping trolley. And this tiny little model is powered by an equally compact 900cc engine that produces 54 brake horsepower. The top speed is a modest 87 miles an hour, and 0 to 60 takes, wait for it, 15.2 seconds. And its opponent in our battle of the super minis is this rather elegant Italian, the Fiat Seicento. The Fiat is £1,000 more than the Dhiatsu and boasts curvy Italian styling. But which of the two will appeal to the two drivers we've enlisted this week? Meet Ellen Cross. She works as a nurse and passed her test 6 months ago. It is James Ty who recently passed his test as well. He's an 18-year-old student. So what does he think of the tiny Fiat? Well, for James, it seems size matters.
Probably couldn't live with a car this size. It is a bit too small for all my friends and that to get in the back.
Meanwhile, Ellen's first impressions of the Dhiatsu are pretty good.
I'm currently driving a Fiesta at the moment. It's a lot more easier to drive than the Fiesta. It's a lot more smoother.
Please, thank you. Thank you very much. James, what do you think of the Fiat? Do you like it?
Yeah, the Fiat's great. It looks very sporty and it handles well as well.
So quite impressed so far?
Yeah.
Excellent. And Ellen, you've been out in the Dhiatsu. Did you like it?
Yeah, I enjoyed driving it. It's a nice car to drive. It's easy to drive and it's very comfortable inside.
And you just felt so comfortable on the road in it, did you?
I did, yes.
Thumbs up for me both so far. Pretty good. One set for you.
Thank you.
One set for you. Off you go. Have a good time.
Cheers. It looks actually like a Nissan Micra. It's a nice car though to look at. It looks very sporty.
James may be impressed, but Ellen isn't stuck on the Seicento.
The steering's it's the accelerator and, you know, the clutch. I don't know, it seems quite difficult to drive.
Well, it's crunch time, so come on you two. Which car would you choose to take home? If you could do, of course, James.
They were similar, but I did prefer the Dhiatsu because I felt you could throw it about and you knew where it was going to go. Also, the engine had a bit more punch.
Ellen, what about you?
Well, even though I preferred the way the Fiat looks, I found it slightly harder to drive because the pedals were quite close together, so I think I prefer the Dhiatsu.
Oh no, what do we do here? They both like it. I'll tell you what, I'm having the Fiat. You can sort that one out between you. Take 14 to 25 Scandinavian cowhides and tan to the highest quality. Peel and prepare the root ball of 1 walnut. Carefully add 15 litres of paint, colour as requested. Flavour with 505 copper studs and 450 different body components. Garnish with 10 metres of Wilton carpet. Add plenty of skilled labour and then simmer with care for 2 to 3 months. And that's the recipe for a Rolls-Royce, one of the world's most prestigious motor cars. Let's go and see how it's done. Since the first car rolled off the Rolls-Royce production line nearly 100 years ago, the name has been synonymous with quality, craftsmanship and, of course, luxury. And after a visit to the factory, it's very easy to see why. There's a saying here at Rolls-Royce and Bentley. The answer is yes. Now what's the question? This is Mulliner Park Ward and it's where customers come to discuss their special requirements. You want a photocopier in the car or maybe a DVD player, armour plating, even bulletproof glass. It really isn't a problem. The only problem is, once you've decided on the extras that you want, you have to decide on the colour. Now there are 30 colours to choose from as standard. And if none of these suit you, then there are thousands of other shades for you to look at as well. But if you really can't find the right colour for you, you can do as one customer did. You could bring in your favourite shade of nail varnish and they'll match the car to that. Now, if money is no object, you can individualise your Rolls-Royce to your heart's desire. It's not unusual for the price of a car to multiply by 3 or 4 times, after some customers have added their own personal ingredients. And at £150,000 for the standard Silver Seraph, The extras are certainly one huge cherry on a very expensive cake. How do you turn this huge burl of walnuts into this, a work of art? Well, it's not an easy task. It takes a team of craftsmen here at Rolls-Royce between 13 and 15 days to do it. The first step, paper-thin sheets of veneer are lathed off the burl of walnuts. They're then jointed together before being attached onto a wooden fascia. Then 17 different pieces of inlay are added onto each separate fascia panel. The fascia is then cut out and sanded before being veneered and very highly polished. And as if all that work wasn't enough, on a Rolls-Royce, every piece of veneer on the left-hand side of the car has to perfectly mirror the veneer on the right. The world may be spinning faster than ever, but the gentle pace of hand-built craftsmanship continues at Rolls-Royce. They do use the odd machine, but there is no compromise to quality. Depending on what extras the customer has gone for, it takes between 14 to 25 high-quality Connolly hides to trim a Rolls-Royce or a Bentley. Now, there are 35 standard colours of leather, but the customer can have them dyed to any shade they want, even chrome yellow, very subtle. If leather's not your thing, then don't worry, they'll upholster your car in anything you want. Yes, anything. So if you're a complete football fanatic, you can even have the interior astroturfed. And to finish the job off, you take 12 metres of the very finest Wilton carpet, hand-woven and dyed to match. I wonder if there's enough of these leftover bits to do my living room. Everything at Rolls-Royce is built to the highest standards, right down to the smallest components in the engine, which means that problems are few and far between. But as they'll tell you at Rolls-Royce, their cars never break down. They just fail to proceed. This car has just arrived from the paint shop and it's just about to start a 3-week journey down the production line. At the moment, it's just a raw shell. By the time it gets right down there to the other end of the factory, it will be ready for the customer. Cary Grant, Sammy Davis Jr., Lenin, Stalin, Churchill, John Lennon, Prince Nazim, Muhammad Ali, and even Mike Tyson. Oh yes, if you've got a famous face, you'll surely drive the most famous of cars. Now, how do I get to join the club? Well, those are the ingredients, and this is the finished product, a Rolls-Royce. But it's still missing the icing on the cake, because no car leaves this factory until it's had a good, long polish. Coming up after the break, will the Citroen Saxo take on the mantle of king of the hot hatches, or will the VW Golf always rule? And we cruise in 3 quiet, clean and stylish diesels to find out which is the best.
If you're anything like me, then you grew up watching your dad move from the small, cool Anglia to the bigger Escort, which just kept on getting bigger and bigger. When it finally came time to get your own car, you didn't want something that your dad had had. You wanted something wild, something a bit crazy, something hot. You wanted a Golf. Not just any old Golf, but the hottest kid in town, the GTI. It was an icon, and like all icons, it had a huge fan club. And like all icons with success, it came weight. It got bigger and bigger. But the fans kept buying and the icon piled on the pounds until it was obvious. It became the type of car your dad would drive. It wasn't hot anymore. Alas, the king is dead. Long live the king. The Saxo VTS is everything the Golf GTI was meant to be. It's small, nimble and fast. The gearbox is slicker than a slippery slick thing and it flows down the road. The question is, how long will they survive before some keen-eyed designer decides to add more weight? Saxo, do you really want to look like this? The diesel, once the prerogative of bus drivers and those tedious little blokes who discuss fuel economy and road numbers at wine and cheese parties, but no more. Modern technology means that a diesel engine need no longer sound like a dustbin full of baking tins landing in a skip. In fact, they can be whisper quiet, as clean as a surgeon's thumb, and go like a train.
So we've gathered together 3 of today's oil burners to see just what they've got to offer. And together they represent most of Europe.
And we're starting our continental tour off in France, a country in which the diesel has long been socially acceptable. This is the Peugeot 406, the best-selling diesel engine passenger car in Europe.
From Italy, perhaps more famous for beautiful if rather impractical sports cars than utilitarian commuter steeds, the gorgeous Alfa 156 JTD.
And from Germany, a country where we're told they pay attention to detail, we have the incredibly well-built Volkswagen Passat TDI. Of course, French manufacturers have long been associated with diesel engines, and Peugeot have always been at the forefront of developing new and sophisticated diesels, which means that their 406 is looked on as a benchmark in the diesel market. It may be practical, but it offers style and driver enjoyment. And in this 406, there's a 2-litre HDI engine on offer for you to enjoy. And it's to be hoped that it provides plenty of excitement, because the styling isn't exactly thrilling. In here, it all looks very functional, I'm afraid. But because this is the top of the range model, you get leather and a few fancy gadgets, things like heated seats and armrests, but it really doesn't cut it in the style stakes. Well, never mind, it's the engine that we're interested in. So let's see how this one fares. The 2-litre engine in this model produces 96 brake horsepower and the top speed is 112 miles per hour. 0 to 60 takes a rather tedious 12.5 seconds. But then remember, this is a diesel. You choose a diesel because it's affordable and because it's a sensible option.
Not bad at all, but I think that the best-selling diesel saloon from France has got some serious competition from Germany in the form of this, the Volkswagen Passat TDI PD. Inside this Passat, it is typically Volkswagen, which means it's very sombre, rather serious and all a bit grown up. That said, there's no shortage of toys to keep the likes of me occupied on a longer journey. We've got probably the most elaborate cup holder I've ever seen, air conditioning, and on this one, radio navigation system as well. But does it sound like a bus? Well, no, not too much. Neither does it drive like a bus. 60 miles an hour comes up in a shade under 12.5 seconds and it'll keep going to about 120 miles an hour. Perfectly respectable figures. And that feeling of being grown up about the interior does translate into the drive as well. It all feels very solid, very stable and very secure on the road. I'm beginning to feel quite responsible here. I reckon that the Passat's combination of luxury and practicality could tip the scales today.
Thanks to direct injection, the likes of BMW and Audi now produce vehicles that you could never know were oil burners. And Alfa Romeo are rather keen to muscle in on the action, which they've done by putting a 2.4-litre turbo diesel into this, the very gorgeous Alfa 156. When it comes to style, it's hardly surprising that the Italians outclass the rest of Europe. After all, according to them, they're the nation that invented it. And it's one of the few cars that has an interior that matches the gorgeous outside. There's a lovely sporty feeling in here, and the twin sculpted seats give it a cockpit-like feel. At first, it's difficult to associate the Italians with a diesel. It's such a practical concept. But apparently, they are quite fond of them. Because although this is the first diesel Alfa in the UK, 30% of the company's European business involves diesel-powered cars, and this one is a beauty. This engine is the first to use a new high-pressure direct injection system, which means it can produce an impressive 136 brake horsepower. And the other figures are equally as good. 0 to 60 takes around 9.5 seconds. And this car will still be pushing on to a rather naughty 126 miles an hour, long after the other two have run out of steam.
But hold on a second, these are diesels we're talking about here. Buckley's getting all carried away talking about performance. What about the economy?
Oh yes, the sensible stuff. Well, the Peugeot offers excellent value for money at the pumps. You can expect on average 51.3 miles to the gallon for the princely sum of £21,400.
Despite being a bigger, more powerful car, the Passat will return a very handy 53.3 miles for every gallon of Derv splashed in the tank. And it'll cost you to buy just £19,400.
And what about our hot little Alpha? Well, there's no such thing as a free lunch, so they say. And you can expect just 42.1 miles to the gallon, for the sum, though, of £20,300. OK, Richard, which is it to be?
Well, the Peugeot is the most expensive of the bunch.
But it's also the most boring. It's got to go.
That leaves us with the Passat, which is probably the best all-rounder.
And it's going to last the longest, but it's just a little bit boring.
So that leaves us with just the Alpha.
You've done the sensible thing. You've bought a diesel. You deserve to have some fun.
So who said diesels have to be boring after all?
Next week on The Motor Show, we've got the only supercar from France. Two landscape designers try out the Ford Explorer and the Subaru Forester. And if you ever wanted to thrash a couple of Ferraris round a track, well, we show you how to do it. Plus, Richard discovers the history of the people's car, the good old VW Beetle.